Amateur Traveler, episode 831. Today, the Amateur Traveler talks about beaches and bronzes, castles and Magna Graecia, olives and wine as we go to southern Italy and Calabria. This is Chris Christensen from Amateur Traveler. Let's talk about Calabria. I'd like to welcome to the show Skyler Mapes from exaoliveoil.com. That's EXAU oliveoil.com, who's come to talk to us about a region of Italy we haven't done on the show yet, and that's Calabria. Skyler, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
And what is your connection with Calabria, first of all?
Oh, my husband's Calabrese, and
Okay.
he was born and raised here. His entire family's from here, so I'm married into it.
Got it. Okay. And why should someone go to Calabria?
To explore a region of Italy that feels really undiscovered and is not overwhelmed with tourists. It's beautiful.
Okay. And we should put it on a map first. So I have not been to Calabria yet because I haven't been south of Rome yet. So we're south of Rome and we're on the west coast of the boot here.
Yeah. The Ball, the Toe, the Tyrrhenian, and the Ionian Sea. So it's right next to Sicily. It's the part of the boot that's kicking Sicily. And if you actually head over to Reggio Calabria, where Giuseppe's dad's from, you can see Sicily. It's beautiful. And on a really clear day, you can actually see people walking on the boardwalk right across the street.
Wow. Okay. Excellent. And what do you recommend that we do? What kind of itinerary are you going to recommend for us?
Oh my goodness. That is the big question. There's so many things to do, but you want to eat and go to the beach and enjoy wildlife. When you come to Calabria, you're not coming to a place where you're going to put on your Valentino heels and hit the clubs. Like, that's not what you do here. This is very much a place where you're going to see very old hillside towns, places that kind of look abandoned. There might be also trash on the road because the sanitary system is not super great in Italy in general, but in the south, things can get a little bit grungy. So that's something that you're going to see on the sides of the roads here. That's a reality that exists here. But then you're going to drive by these ancient, super old castles and what look and are Greek ruins and think, where the heck am I? And that is what you do in Calabria. You just come here and you kind of roam. You roam. That's what you do in Calabria. You eat and you roam and you go to the beach.
Okay. Well, where are you going to start us?
Okay. Let's start up near Tropea. Because if you're driving down from Napoli, let's say you fly into Rome or you fly into Naples, you can actually drive down to Tropea. And then you can also go over to Cosenza. That's that side of Calabria. That's the further west side of Calabria. And Tropea, it was named one of the top places to visit by National Geographic, which is really incredible. And it has Calabria is very mountainous. It has a lot of hills. So when you're driving down the highway from Naples, you're going through a ton of tunnels. And you think you've been through tunnels, you haven't been through tunnels until you have driven from Naples to Calabria, trust me. And the highways are very raised and they have these really big arches. And so it feels like you're driving down these bridges and they're spanning across these mountains that are really green and really it's just full of greenery. And then you get to the beach and there's hillsides which lead all the way up to the coast. And that is like Calabria in essence. And so if you want to come down here, I highly recommend Tropea is very touristy. Stanley Tucci was just there. He was eating onion everything. The Tropean onions are very famous because they're small and they're really sweet. And that is actually something you can get pretty much anywhere in Tropea. There's not one specific place where you have to get onions from Tropea.
Okay.
And then you can go down to Scilla. I have not eaten in Scilla. I want to give you restaurant recommendations for that part of Calabria, but I haven't eaten there. I've only gone to strictly go to the beach and walk between the buildings to get down to the water because Scilla's like a fishing town. You
And
park
before we go down
outside.
to
Yeah.
Sheila, we were in Tropea and we were eating onions. Is there anything else we're doing in Tropea besides eating onions?
I like you just eat seafood. That is
Okay.
what you do. When you come to Calabria, you eat seafood, you eat onions, you eat cured meat. But if you're along the coast, I highly recommend really sticking with clams and mussels and a lot of the traditional Calabrian pasta shapes with those seafoods.
Okay.
Also, swordfish is really a very common dish here, and you can eat it. They make it a million different ways. You can have swordfish with potatoes. You can have swordfish with olives, black olives. You can have it with a tomato sauce. And that can be like either a first plate or a second plate. And so you can have swordfish pasta. You can have it just again, like for secondo baked with potatoes. They use it in a lot of dishes. It's very common here to have
Okay.
swordfish in everything.
Okay. And it's a seaside town with one of these small beaches that I'm seeing that so many of these towns along this coast of Italy have. Not big beaches, but little tiny
Tropea has
ones
a big
below the
beach.
cliff.
So
It
yeah,
has a what?
Tropea has a very big beach.
Big beach by Italian standards?
Like big beach by Italian standards.
Okay.
We're gonna get to big ass beaches when we come over to where I am. Like we're
Okay.
gonna get there, but we'll start with little like big Calabrian beaches. But I think honestly, Calabria has, and you can look this up. It's like the kilometer of coastline here is
Hmm.
insane. There's very few places you go in Calabria you can't have full access to the beach.
Okay.
Like you have to literally go to the mountains to escape it because there's just so much coastline, you know?
Got it.
So actually, I
Okay.
want to know how many kilometers, if you can look it up, how many kilometers Calabria has of beaches. I don't remember off the top of my head, but it's something insane.
500 miles.
500 miles. That's a lot of beach.
That's a lot of beach. Cool. Okay. So then you headed us down to, and I don't know how to say it, but we're talking about Scila.
Yeah, you go to Sheila.
Sheila. Okay. We lost the C somehow, is the thing that confused me. Okay.
And that is it's a smaller seaside town. Not quite as big, not nearly as touristy, a little bit sleepier, very slow. And
Okay.
then you also have Chianalea, which is very close by. In a way, it's similar to Cinque Terre but you can't hike. Like I wouldn't try and hike to these places. Calabria is not fit for travel by foot. It's very much a place where you need to drive. You need a car if you
Okay.
come to Calabria. Unless you're staying in the town, absolutely need to have a car because places are very far away.
And what is driving like for those of us who don't normally drive in Italy?
Race car.
Okay.
Race
Because I was saying to
car.
say,
It's
in
Mario
Italy,
Kart.
if you're driving in northern Italy, it's just like driving in the US, pretty much. If you're driving in Rome, just forget it. And I didn't know what it was going to be like here. Race car. Okay.
Because and there's a lot of different layers to Calabria, right? So I
Okay.
already mentioned the trash and that
Yep.
issue here. Now we dive into the public transportation and highway system. And this is something that really irks me because my work is in agriculture and it makes no sense. It doesn't make any sense. Calabria and Puglia are the biggest olive oil producers in Italy,
Yep.
with Puglia producing about 36% of all the olive oil in the entire country. Calabria and Puglia
So
do
the
not
toe in
have,
the heel.
yeah, the toe in the heel, do not have a multi-lane highway to drive back and forth on. So if we want to go from, let's say, like Catanzaro over to Lecce, we have to drive on a one-way highway. So you have semi-trucks two-lane highway. You have semi-trucks on a two-lane highway and there's cars going around them. It's so dangerous. And so that's
Okay.
something we want people to definitely be aware of when they're coming down here. Italians, of course, they're great drivers, but you're going to be on a highway that is just two lanes with semi-trucks, people that are moving commercial goods. And it's not like in the US where you're able to the trucks keep to the right and you're able to pass them
Mm-hmm.
on the left and go into the fast lane. Even if it was like a 4-lane highway, 2 lanes in each direction, it would be a much better situation, but it causes a lot of traffic. And unfortunately, it does create a dangerous highway if you're not used to driving here. You have to be very careful.
Okay, so it sounds like someone who, like me, who is coming there for the first time should just be patient.
Be patient and
Okay.
just go with the flow.
Yep.
Don't try and pass on a road you're not familiar with or on a place where you can't see super, super far away.
Yep.
Pass with a lot of caution and make sure that there's no other cars going in the opposite direction. Even if they're coming off from they're making like a left or right turn.
Okay.
Just be careful. And
Cool.
signal.
Okay.
A lot.
We were up at Sheila,
Okay,
which has a
tangent.
castle too.
Yes, there's a castle. And then went down the Kianalea, which is also beautiful and on the coast. And then you can also go to the beach there. So these are like very small seaside towns. You can hit each one in a day. So that is like a day trip if you're staying in Reggio Calabria.
Eating and we're going to the beach. And those are the main things we're doing in
eating
area.
And going to the beach.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah. And then if you want to keep coming down, you can go down to Reggio Calabria. And there is like Reggio Calabria it's such a fun up and coming city. It's a very, very old place. Like everywhere in Italy, everything is so old here. But you can feel the connection to Sicily. You can feel like the age, the oldness, the ancientness of Italy in a place like Reggio Calabria, especially if you go to the Bronze Museum. So that is what Reggio's famous for, the Bronze Museum.
Okay.
And they have the bronze statues of the men. I don't remember the names of them, but if you go in there, you go through the entire museum. If you're into archaeology and Greek ruins, you're going to have the time of your life in that museum. And then at the end, when you finally get to see the statues in person and how big they are, it's incredible.
Okay. So these are two 2,500-year-old bronze statues from classical Greek age that they found in the water.
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting.
And then in Reggio, I would eat. Oh my gosh.
And there's going to be a theme here. I can tell. That's okay.
Okay. So yes, you can eat swordfish again if you'd like, but I would actually eat bacala, which is like salted cod. And there's two. So, Reggio is famous for the bacala. And basically, if you're not familiar with it, with salted cod, it's very dry and they salt it to cure it. And then and it becomes like dry, basically. So it becomes like a dry cured fish. Moist, excuse me. It's like a moist, dry cured fish. And then when you want to cook it and eat it and consume it, you need to rinse it with water several times. So you put water on top, you leave it for an hour, you dump it out. Put water on, leave it for an hour, and dump it out. You do that a couple times. Then you leave the water in like overnight or for 12 hours because you want to get as much of that salt out as possible. And then after that, you can put it in tomato sauces for pasta, or you can cook it with potatoes. And we're going to get to why we're talking about potatoes so much, but there is a reason. And you cook it with potatoes and olives, and that's a really good secondo. Or you can put it in a tomato sauce and eat it as a pasta sauce, which is also equally as delicious.
Okay.
And so that is like how I would consume bacala. And other than that in Reggio, like really the thing to do is you walk up and down the promenade, you go into a gelateria and you get ice cream. There's a place on the corner. It's a green building. And if you just look up like best gelateria in Reggio, it's a green building. It's super old. They make one of the best ice creams in Italy, and it's family owned. It's on a corner. It reminds me of going to like an old school ice cream place in the US.
Okay.
Like a place you could go and get a milkshake and eat it at the counter. It feels very nostalgic. But you can't miss it. You're like, Skyler, I'm going to go. I'm not going to find this place. You will find this place. Trust me, because you're going to go down the boardwalk and you're going to get to the end of the boardwalk and it's around the corner from the Bronze Museum. And then you're
It's
going
the
to see it in.
Gelateria Caesarea, I think.
Thank you. That is it. You can't miss it. There's no, it's literally like in the middle of the
Caesarea,
road
sorry.
on a block.
Yep. Okay.
And there's nothing else on the block except this little park and the ice cream shop. It's perfect.
Got it.
And that's what you do. And Giuseppe likes to get cantaloupe ice cream.
Flavor. Okay.
Yeah. And he likes pistachio. And I really like their chocolate. Classic chocolate and strawberry or vanilla. Those are my favorites.
Got it. Okay. And you talked about Greek ruins. We're now in an ancient Greek city, or Magna Greca.
You're in Magna Grecia. Which is a zone. Technically, it's a zone, right? So it's from like Reggio Calabria area all the way, like part of Sicily. And then if you were to follow that road, it would take you all the way from Reggio Calabria east, past Catanzaro, past Crotone, and up near Puglia. And that would be Magna Grecia. And it's Great Greece.
Right.
And where a lot of the Greeks went when they were looking for a new home.
They're colonies, basically, from ancient Greece. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Konnichiwa, I'm Yuki, a tour leader with Explore. Who knew that hidden among Tokyo's towering skyscrapers was a peaceful tea house surrounded by ancient trees and serene ponds? Actually, I knew. It was my mother's secret sanctuary. Not everyone knows about Tokyo's Hamarikyu Gardens. Arigatou gozaimasu. But you will if you explore. Search exploreworldwide.com and don't just travel. Explore.
Excellent. Anything else we want to do in Reggio Calabria?
Not that I can. Oh, Bergamo. Hello. Anything Bergamo you have to consume because it's one of the only places, it's where it's from. I mean, that's a native region of the fruit. And a lot of the
I don't know Bergamo. I don't know what we're talking about.
It's a fruit. It's a citrus fruit.
Okay.
It's bergamot, I think in English, right? Bergamot. This is what happens when I say it in Italian for too long. I can't remember the word, English word for things.
Okay. But it's a type of orange I'm seeing that doesn't look like an orange at all. It's like lumpy green.
Yeah. It kind of looks like a weird distorted lime.
Yeah. Like mutated.
Yeah. It smells so good. And pretty much all of the perfume in the world, like with the big perfume houses, if they make perfume, this is one of the scents that's at the base of that perfume. Huh. So there's a huge industry for bergamot for perfume. And people do consume the fruit. So if someone has a tree, they'll juice it and put it, they can make like ice cream or gelato with it, or put it in like a tea, like an iced tea. It's very fragrant. So it's something you could also like zest it and put it on top of fish. But it's very intense, hence why they use it for perfume.
And you have me putting in an iced tea here, and that reminds me of seasons. What's the right season, your favorite season to be in Calabria? It's going to be hot in the summer.
Yeah, I would say anywhere from like April to June.
Okay.
And then if you want to go into July, like fine, do that. I would not come here in August. Okay. It's too much of everything. There's too many people. It's too crazy. I don't like it here in August. They stay home. I just don't go outside in August.
Okay. That's why I ask. Excellent.
September to October is also really nice. But you also have to remember a lot of these places that we're talking about are beach towns. And so they might not have the restaurant. Yeah, everything might not be open if you come in April. Okay, after Reggio, we should head over to Catanzaro. Okay. And Catanzaro is a city on a hill. There's actually two parts. There's Catanzaro Lido, and then there's Catanzaro, which is up on the hillside.
Okay, so Catanzaro Lido is on the water.
Yes, it's on the water. And
Okay.
it doesn't have a lot of like old buildings. Like
Okay.
it's the sister part of the city, which is up on the hill. It reminds me of a 1980s beachside Italian town
Okay.
with newer kind of structures, but
Okay.
it also has a lot of charm to it. So it's really pretty to walk along the boardwalk and just you go there like to just hang out. And if you want to go to the beach, it has a good beach. And that's a big beach,
Okay.
like an actual big beach,
Got
very
it.
long.
And my impression is that in this area, most of the old town is up above the water because there were pirates. There were
Yeah.
Saracen pirates and things like that to worry about. And so you didn't put your town where it was an invitation to piracy. Okay.
And then up on the actual hillside, again, you're going to see bridges
Okay.
because Calabria just has a lot of high elevation places. And so you're going to go across a series of bridges to get into the city, which is really cool because you're driving along the water and then you start to go up a hill and then you're driving over this huge bridge to actually get into the city. And you can park a little bit outside the city and then go ahead and walk in. It's really beautiful and old.
Okay.
And they used to make velvet there. I didn't know this until just recently, but it was a city that was famous for making velvet. And they don't make a lot of velvet at all anymore. I think there's maybe just a handful of places you could get it.
Mm-hmm.
But that's what the city was known for back in the day.
Okay.
And it's windy. So if you're going, bring a jacket. It's a very windy place.
Okay. Is there anything particular we're seeing when we're walking through the streets of this old town? Are there any specific sites you would send us to?
There is really good shopping in the downtown main piazza.
Okay.
They have really cute jewelry stores and cute clothing stores and some local makers in Calabria. So like when I go there, I mostly go shopping.
Okay.
And then obviously you're going to see a couple churches and you should go inside because the churches are really pretty.
Okay. And including the Duomo, I would assume.
Yes.
The
But that's
cathedral.
all the same. That the common theme here is once you actually get to the downtown actual center of these places, you just want to go and you want to like pop in. That's
Okay.
what you want to do. You want to pop in to see the churches. You want to pop in and go to the cute shops and see what they have. And there's only a handful of places that I really love going to in Calabria specifically for shopping. And Catanzaro is one of them.
Okay. Got it. Anything else for Catanzaro?
That's it, I believe. Yeah.
Okay.
We're going to go to a lot of hillside. You're going to see a common theme. Go to this hillside town and just go sit in a cafe and drink coffee. That's what you do in Calabria. It's not a place you go to achieve a mission. It's a place you go to relax and not do a lot. You meander. It's a meandering place. It's not a destination like I'm going to go into the Colosseum. You meander in Calabria. You get lost.
Okay. Where to next?
Should we go to... Okay, we might actually go... Okay, let's come to La Castella first, and then we can go back up, because there's San Giovanni in Fiore, which is actually closer to Cosenza. We can come over to La Castella. So there's... How do I put this into words? So Calabria is divided into West Calabria and East Calabria.
Okay.
And they have different names for foods, and like, for example, like meatballs, like here in the zone of Crotone, they're called bracciole, but on the Cosenza side, they're called purpette. And so you find these, but it seems to be divided into East and West, which I think is really interesting. And if you come over to La Castella, you're going to find some different customs than you would in the western part of Calabria, the Crotone side. So La Castella is a really tiny town in Calabria. It's beautiful. There's That's the name. Castle. There's a castle in the middle of the water. It's very touristy in the summer, but not mostly with European. Like we get a lot of German, Russian, and some British tourists, and Americans are starting to come to La Casella now. But I remember like my first time coming to La Casella 8 years ago, I didn't meet a single American here.
Okay.
There was like English, there's not a lot of English speakers. So brush up on your Italian. Before you come to Calabria in general, there's not a lot of English speakers except at maybe big hotels.
Okay. Good.
But yeah, there's a castle in the middle of the water, and it's a tiny town of 1,300 people. You go to La Castella and you come to this part of Calabria to go to the beach. That is what you do. You eat seafood and you go to the beach. And these are big ass beaches. These make California beaches and US beaches look just regular.
Okay.
These are huge beaches. And
we're not in the Cinque Terre where you open an umbrella and you're taking a significant percentage of the beach. Okay.
No, these are huge beaches where you can easily just walk down a little bit and you will find plenty of space you can put whatever, you can put multiple umbrellas, you could build a little hut. And people do. They build their little summer huts on the beach.
Okay.
And they go back there day after day. But you do need to drive down to them for the most part, unless you're going to the beach like by the castle in town. You need to drive. But when I say drive, it's like a 5-minute drive. It's just that it might be up a hill or down a hill that's really steep and not practical. It's on like a dirt road that's not practical for people to be walking on.
Okay. Got it. And we've gone to the beach here. We've eaten our seafood. Anything else we're going to do before we head to the next place where we're going to drive to the beach and eat seafood?
Yeah. Eat food sott'olio. Food under oil, cured under oil.
Explain this.
Oh, okay. So Calabria, and you could also... You can find this also in Cosenza. People listening to this from Calabria are going to be like, you didn't mention Cosenza. I'm sorry, I don't know Cosenza super well, so I can't talk about it. But Cosenza is also a famous place for food sott'olio, but all of Calabria is known for food cured under oil. And it goes back to South Italy in general being really not having a lot of money, not having a lot of resources to the city, not having a lot of refrigeration. So they had to find ways to keep their food cured. Hence bacala, foods like bacala cured under salt. You also have stock, which is like a dried fish. So it doesn't need refrigeration.
Okay.
Food under oil is a food that is cooked. So let's say like melanzana, so you have eggplants, and you cook the eggplants. You might saute them or boil them with a little bit of like salt and a little bit of spices, and then you put them into jars. And once it's all nice and full, you put the olive oil on top, and then you steam it so it seals it. And that is the food sott'olio. So you can do this with...
So I'm thinking of sun-dried tomatoes, the way I get them in a lot of oil. Is that the same kind of... Okay.
Or like olives. Smashed olives, olive schiacciate, which are like smashed olives, but without the pits. What else? If you can jar it, they do it in Calabria. Like I swear they would jar air. I feel like they would jar and fry air if they could, because they're experts in frying and jarring. So you also very well known for tuna fish in Calabria. Tuna fish season is actually usually at the end of September, which then the whole entire town smells like tuna fish because all the ladies pull out their boiling carts and they scrape the fish. Boil the fish and jar the fish.
Mental note, skip September. Okay.
End of September, beginning of October, but it's so good. Oh my gosh, it's so good. And it's entire salmon fillets. So if you get salmon sott'olio in Calabria, you're going to want to look for a glass jar of it. And you want the fillet to be intact. So you want it to be a long skinny piece of meat.
Okay.
And then it'll just be filled up with oil. Some people like to use a mix of like sunflower oil and olive oil. Obviously, we prefer 100% olive oil because I'm an olive oil producer.
The olive producers, yeah.
It's a personal preference, but they do it with everything. Also mushrooms, bell peppers, greens, like anything that you can put jarred under sotolio, peppers, all types,
Okay.
everything, zucchini, dried zucchini. So they'll dry the zucchini out in the
Huh.
sun and then put it sotolio. Anything you can cure and then
Okay.
store under oil, they cure and store under oil. Anything. Fair game.
Okay. Got it. Okay.
And so you want to eat as much food sotolio as possible in Calabria, no matter where you are. Just find like that place's specialty. Let's say if you're in Tropea and they have incredible onions, then trying the onion sotolio would be perfect.
Okay.
That's what I would eat. If you're over in the zone of like Zaro Crotone, La Castella, the tuna is going to be incredible.
Okay.
And if you're in the mountains, which we're about to get to, we want to eat as many mushrooms as humanly possible.
Okay. Got it.
But anyways, and La Castella and also like Catanzaro over to Crotone, there's just so much coastline. You can go to the beach and there's so much coastline and the water is very beautiful. So it's perfect for swimming.
Okay. Got it.
And then after La Castella, I would zip over to Crotone, which also has a castle. Everywhere has a castle. But
See aforementioned pirates. Okay, yep.
Crotone is really cool because their castle is actually right by the water. Like before the port was built, that castle was almost directly on the water. And that's also what's cool about La Castella because the castle here is in the water. It was very much a fortress, as you can imagine, for keeping the enemy away in the middle of the water before they built the kind of boardwalk for people to get over to it. But I digress. Crotone is the city. This place is so cool, underrated, because it's the city of Croton. And he was Mylon of Croton was one of the first Olympic athlete. And so it is the city of athletes. And also, you know the Pythagorean theorem?
Sure.
Yeah. So Pythagoras is he spent a lot of time in Crotone. And the school there, the high school, is named after him. So you have these two very famous figures that come from or spent a lot of time in Crotone. This was like their home base.
Okay.
Yeah. But forgotten city. So in castle, must do. If you are cooking, if you have a kitchen or you have access to somebody else's kitchen, I would go to the port where they have fresh seafood. They have like this little fresh seafood market. And that I would buy mussels and clams and other seafood from the market there. And it's just this little stand. They're open every single day, but I would go there. It's super duper fresh. So good. And I would make it at home if possible with all the beautiful, wonderful ingredients that you got from the market. With the incredible fresh mussels and clams you can get at the market. If you want to go out, you're like, I don't want to cook. You can go to Ercole, which is in downtown. No, wait. It's along the boardwalk in Crotone. It's Ercole.
Okay.
Yeah, that is where I would go to eat for seafood.
Okay.
And go to the castle. And you can do Crotone. They have a really cool, the older part of the city is beautiful. You can do it in a day. If you're trying to zip through Calabria, you can definitely do Crotone in a day. And then you can also zip over to Castella. Like these are places that you can move through pretty quickly because you're not going to big grandiose museums. You're going to meander again.
Okay.
Pop in the coffee shops, hang out, eat. And then also, while you're in Calabria, you should go to Sila, which is a very unexpected mountainous region. It is next thing, like you think you're on the beach and then you drive in the mountains and next thing you're like, this is Swiss adjacent. It feels like
Okay.
you're in not exactly the Swiss Alps because they're not, the mountains are obviously not as high. But we actually had some of our friends and customers come visit in Calabria, and they said that they felt like they're in Canada.
Okay.
And it does snow, and there are a few lakes up in
Okay.
Sila, and it's a national park. So you have
Mm-hmm.
Sila Grande and you have Sila Piccola, and there's different like Cosenza's on one side of Sila, and then you have the zone of Catanzaro, which is on the other side, and Sila's it's the kind of the divider, if that makes sense, on the map between a couple different Calabrian cities.
Okay.
And if you want to get from one place to another, you have to drive around Sila. But once you get in the mountains, you can go to Lorica, and there's Lake Arvo, which is really pretty. So if you go to Lorica, I highly recommend going to Il Brillo Parlante. That is going to be a great place to eat. You need a reservation if you're going, though, because it's really popular. It's not a place you have to get dressed up for at all, but it's beautiful, and you have lakeside views.
And the translation of Il Burio is like the tipsy talker or something like that?
I think it's the talking cricket.
Cricket. Okay.
Brillo, I think Brillo. Is that cricket? Il Brillo.
I'm seeing that as tipsy.
Tipsy? I don't know.
Or drunk.
The tipsy talker? I always thought it was a cricket. I'll ask Giuseppe. Because they have a sign of the little cricket.
Cricket would be grilli, I'm saying. I don't know. Maybe the cricket is drunk.
Maybe it's a drunk cricket. They have a little cricket symbol on their sign. So I thought it was always the talking cricket. I'll ask next time I'm there. The owner's really nice. And you can walk around, and actually there are a couple different places where you can book tours, like walking tours. And so if you book, I don't have a preferred place to go to do hiking there.
Yeah.
But if you book a hiking tour, they can take you out for an hour, 2 hours, 5 hours, whatever. And then if you're going in the winter, you can go snowshoeing, which is what I want to do in the colder months, like January, February. I want to go snowshoeing. It sounds so fun and it's gorgeous. And then when you're in Sila, if you do one thing, I need you to eat mushrooms and potatoes.
And you were going to get to potatoes, and why potatoes in Calabria?
These are unicorn potatoes. The best potatoes I've ever had in my entire life. They are what potatoes are supposed to be.
Okay.
They are small and yellow inside. And if you want to make, they actually have two different types. They have ones that are better for like sweets and better for savory things. And when they say sweets, they mean like making doughs and things. So like a gnocchi.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah. And then the other ones are better for like French fries and for actually just eating like fried. And they do potatoes a million different ways in Calabria. And the potato for me is basically its own food group. So they will make them smashed, sliced thin, sliced into thicker potato wedges, like a million different types and ways to eat, cook, fry, devour a potato. They do in Sila. And it's perfect. It's what a potato is supposed to be.
Okay.
I didn't know I could feel so passionately about potatoes until I started eating them a lot in Calabria. And now you can just tell the difference. And there's actually potato chip companies that are now making potatoes with potatoes from Sila, which I think is really cool. So very niche. We'll see if they show up in more international markets, but they are available like nationally in Italy.
Got it.
And then mushrooms, porcini mushrooms, especially in September. I know you're worried about tuna season, but if you get to Calabria early enough in September, you can avoid the tuna and then head up to the mountains to actually enjoy the porcini.
Okay.
And
Got it.
they're good. They're so good. If you are going to go to Camigliatello, which is another really cute in Sila, it's a very cute, like wintry, again, feels Swiss-esque town. There's a place called La Tavernetta, and it's very good, like Michelin star worthy place. So that's a place, that's somewhere I would go if I wanted to spend a bit more on a lunch or on a dinner for a special
Okay.
occasion. And the chef is incredible. He was like voted one of the best chefs in Italy under 30, and then he was also just on Top Chef Italy. Their wine cellar is extremely extensive.
Okay.
Yeah. So that is
excellent. Anything else we're doing up in the national park area?
I think that's actually, you could do San Giovanni and Fiore. They have a really incredible jewelry maker called Sparafora, and it's beautiful. The store, like their main headquarters store, is there, and it's gorgeous, over the top, super gaudy, everything you would expect from a old Italian jewelry maker, and it feels like you're going into a jewelry museum.
Okay.
So that, I think it's a very fun experience. San Giovanni and Fiore, I want to spend more time there because it has so much history. So far, we've only gone a handful of times to basically walk around the town and bring your walking shoes, because if you're going to go down some of these side streets and it's going to feel like you're a billy goat. Going up, yes, okay, fine. You go to Siena, you go to some of these other like very high, these older medieval towns in Italy, and they feel very steep. San Giovanni and Fiore is, I have never walked in a place so steep in my entire life. So sneakers, like seriously, sneakers, no high heels.
I will try and remember that. The jewelry you were talking about is GB Spadafora? Okay. Got it.
Yeah. And that's around kind of close by to Sila on your way back down. There's also to hop over to Santa Severina. That's a gorgeous town up on a hillside. Again, the castle is also a museum, and it is one of the most beautiful places I've ever seen in my entire life. That is another place where extremely steep, wear your sneakers, and make sure if you're going there, you do not plug into Waze. Don't use Waze if you're going to Santa Severina. Use Google Maps and make sure you're going straight to the city's parking lot, because if you get stuck in one of those streets, you're SOL. I'm sorry. You're not.
So this is one of those where you're driving down the street and suddenly you're at a sidewalk cafe.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Been there.
And
okay.
It just gets so narrow, like you're not going to be able to drive through the streets.
I'm getting flashbacks of driving in certain portions of it.
It's traumatizing. Okay. Once it happens to you, it's horrible.
I thought we would leave a rental car in southern Andalusia at one point.
Oh, gosh.
Fortunately, with the 27-point turn, I was able to turn around and go back. But, yep.
So, yeah, that is, I would definitely go to Santa Severina, go into the castle, go into the museum, sit in the piazza, go into the church, go into the Duomo, in the center, into the main square. And you'll know when you arrive in the main square. It's gorgeous. And then just go have a drink there. Sit in the piazza and have a drink. And watch all the old men hang out and talk to each other. I think 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock is probably the perfect time to go have a drink in the piazza in Santa Severina.
When am I drinking at 4 or 5 o'clock in Calabria?
If it's warm weather, you're going to drink a spritz.
Okay.
And in cold weather, I actually like to drink spritz year round. But my husband really likes Campari. I do not like it at all. I'm a spritz kind of girl. And that's what I usually consume in Calabria. But if you want to have a type of aperitivo, you can get Jefferson, which is very warming. That's from Calabria. And then most of the licorice-esque alcohols, because Calabria is also very famous for its licorice, are going to be made here. Like the heavy licorice type alcohols. Those
Sure.
are very popular in Calabria because they make so much of it. Yeah.
I am not usually going out of my way looking for
Me
those,
neither,
but
but if it's done well, then, and I
Mhm.
feel that way with most things, even if you're not a huge fan of a certain type of flavor, if it's done well, you can almost always somewhat enjoy it, even if it's not your favorite thing. Because I'm not a huge licorice
Okay.
person, but when I eat licorice in Calabria, I'm like, oh, I get it. I understand why people like it. And it's not my favorite thing, but this is well done. It's done properly, so
Okay.
I understand the appeal of it.
Got it. I feel like your itinerary is starting to wrap up here.
Yeah, it is. The last destination in Calabria, this is a lot, would be Ciro, which is the wine region. And
Okay.
this wine region is huge, really good, and at times can also feel like you're in the middle of nowhere. I'm from Northern California, from Oakland. I spent a lot of time going up to Sonoma and
Sure.
Napa. My parents were members of a gazillion wine clubs, and I worked in the wine
I
industry.
understand.
I love wine. But the wineries in South Italy, it blows my mind how much property these people have to manage and how much property
Okay.
they own. There's a family, makes incredible wine, but their property is basically a quarter of Sonoma Valley. That, so just to put it in perspective of like how big the industry is here, how much space and how many grapes that people manage. It blows my mind.
Oh, what's the winery?
There's a couple of them. So there's Uzzolini, which is Iueolini. Uzzolini, yeah, I think that's it.
Okay.
And then there's another one called Labrandi. These are bigger places that you'll be able to find these wines in also other parts of Italy. And then,
And in terms of the wine scene in southern Italy and Calabria, is this a place where I can go taste like you would have up in the Sonoma Valley when you're up here, or is it just a production
no,
area?
it's a place where you can definitely go taste. There are going to
Okay.
be other wineries you can go to. I do recommend calling ahead of time just because, also just depending on the season and like what their tasting rooms like with Uzzolini and Labrandi, they're used to people coming in and wanting to taste and wanting to buy product, but you're not always going to find the same exact like experience of the wine tasting culture that you have in a place like Northern California. So it's better to
Right. Yeah.
make a reservation if you can, or call ahead and say, hey,
Okay.
if I want to come taste wine, like what does that look like? How many people can we bring? Because these places also do tours. So it's like, you want to see if you want to do a tour, obviously you need to book that ahead of time. But if you want to do a tasting, like they might not be prepared for that because the culture is just it's not the same. Also, people are coming and they're literally like, I think Labrandi has like this wine pump looking wine dispenser thing. And people bring their humongous jugs
Okay.
up. And I swear it looks like it looks like a gasoline pump. And you put your jug down and you stick the nozzle in and you
Okay.
hold the handle like
Sure.
you're like
Yeah.
you're at the gas station.
Okay.
And that's what you're dealing with. That, yeah. So that's for some perspective. Like selling it by the kilo.
Huh. Okay.
And if you do want to go to some smaller places here in Calabria, you're really into wine in the Ciro area and you want to go to see what some of the younger producers are doing, I would get here and ask around and then call those places. It doesn't matter if you want to go taste the same day. Like Calabrians are very kind, accommodating, lovely people. And if you just even an hour ahead of time or the same day say, hey, we're looking for this, or can you help us, or can you tell us where to go, and get that recommendation for another really great winery or another place in the area.
Okay. Excellent. Anything else we ought to know on our itinerary before we get to some of our wrap-up questions? questions?
No, I think that's it.
Excellent. You, not a regular listener to the show, so you don't know what's coming. You're standing in the prettiest spot in Calabria. Where are you standing and what are you looking at?
I'm standing in the piazza of. Oh, this is a trick question. That's not fair. We have two places. Okay, Santa Severina in the piazza, and I'm looking at the castle and over at the hillside surrounding area and the rolling hills. Beautiful. And the sun is just starting to set. I'm going to go have a drink.
And you had two answers. What was the other answer? I'm
sitting
curious.
in my olive grove. We have a seaside property. And we look out towards the front of our grove and we see the Ionian, and it has a really steep kind of cliff drop off. And it is one of the most beautiful, peaceful places in the world.
And in the Ionian, that sea between the heel and the toe.
It's between between the heel and the toe. Thank you.
Yep. And where is your olive grove?
Just outside of the area of Crotone.
Crotone, okay, got it. One thing that makes you laugh and say only in Calabria, besides the gas pump for the wine, which will already count, but okay.
Giuseppe's aunt, when I go to her house after dark.
Okay.
Because she lives around the corner. And when I go there without driving, if I walk around the corner and I go to her house, she's like, you came here at this time. And now the sun is setting. It's winter time. So the sun is setting at 4.
Right.
So I will be at her house at 5:30 p.m. And she's like, a quest'ora. At this time, you're here at my house. Ma'am, it is 5:30 p.m. Where else am I supposed to be? You walked here. It's dangerous.
Oh, gosh.
Only in Calabria.
Funny. And if you had to summarize Calabria in just 3 words, what 3 words would you use?
Wild, unorganized, and kind.
Excellent. Excellent. Our guest again has been Skyler Mapes. And we said before from exooliveoil.com, and I'll put a link to that. It's EXAU oliveoil.com in the show notes. And Skyler, you also have, and this is something I don't usually see on an olive oil site, the travel tab. Click here if I want to travel to Calabria. Why do you have that and what are you doing?
So we are going to start in 2023 travel consulting, helping folks with their travel to Calabria. What do they want to do? Why are they coming here? We share a lot the beauty of Calabria online. And I think that people see that and they want to experience it for themselves. We're showing online is what you show people, right? You show people what you want them to see. And so we want to make sure that people know and have a good understanding of where they're coming to, what they want to do, and why they're coming here. I've noticed that a lot of people that travel to Calabria, they either have been to all the other regions in Italy and they're looking for a new place to go. They have family here, or they just really don't like over touristy places and they are more of that kind of wild rogue traveler. And so
rogue traveler, okay.
Yeah, and that is, if you're a rogue traveler, then Calabria is perfect for you because that describes the region very well also. And so we want to help people navigate things properly and where they should stay, what they're looking for. If they're super into wine, maybe it's better for them to stay and spend more time in Chiro, and then we explore more wineries that they want to go visit. They do a longer, like I was saying, a tour at one of those wineries. If they're really into hiking, maybe they want to go to Sila and spend a lot of time doing X, Y, and Z there, go foraging for mushrooms, helping people just get the most out of their trip because there's not a lot of resources for Calabria. So what do they want to do?
Excellent. Again, I'll put a link to the show notes to Skyler's website. Skyler, thanks so much for coming on Amateur Traveler and sharing with us your love for Calabria.
Thank you for having me.
At this part of the show, I usually put out a thanks to the patrons of this show who help support the show financially. I would ask that you, wherever you're sitting, could say a silent thanks for the patrons of the show who help get this show out, because if you're enjoying this show, they're part of the process here that makes it happen. If you're interested in becoming a patron of the show, you can go to patreon.com/amateurtraveler, or just to learn more about it. For the show that we did recently on the San Juan Islands and Whidbey Island, I heard from Ryan, who said, didn't hear it mentioned, but Orcas, there's Orcas Island, has incredible bioluminescent kayaking, and I did not know that. I've been to the area, but had not heard of that, so thank you so much for filling me in, Ryan. With that, we're going to end this episode of Amateur Traveler. If you have any questions, send an email to host@amateurtraveler.com, or better yet, leave a comment on this episode at amateurtraveler.com. If you think you should be on Amateur Traveler, or you think that we should do a show on a particular destination, let me know. Again, host@amateurtraveler.com. And as always, thanks so much for listening.